so many of you poured your little hearts out, so thank you. Because that's hard. First, you have to like realize that I'm that. I'm that big. I feel that much. And then whether you're 3 years old or 2 year old like she is, or you're like me, 44, maybe you're 64, and you realize that you connect that much with those around you. So whether it's the dinosaur in the TV or it's the suffering happening in Puerto Rico, it's huge. And if you're moving around, it's because it's like 9 o'clock in the morning and I'm out on my porch. And why not do this now when it's that fresh, and other than my animals, it's just me. So I wanted to share with you two things. One, my journey in realizing that I'm an empathetic individual, and then B, having a child who I knew when she was that young that she was special, and how to raise that and nurture it, and especially in schools, because it's not always seen. People don't always have time for it, which, you know, what are you going to do? We don't have all that time to train other people or teach other people. But what we can do is empower our children, and we can also empower ourselves. So, number one, I never realized it until my husband actually noticed. I used to work at Starbucks, did 10 years, and it was amazing. But he recognized that some days I would come home exhausted, and some days I would come home like I didn't skip a beat. I was still really, really energetic. So he would start asking me questions like, who are you working with today? What happened? All that kind of stuff. So I realized through his questioning what was happening. So with that knowledge, so here I'm at work. I still have to go to work. I have to do my job. When I was working with certain individuals who just threw out a lot of negativity or a lot of hatred, we'll just put it in the bowl of negativity, okay, for the sake of simplicity. I knew I had to do my work, and usually when I do my work, I put 150% in, which takes a lot of energy too, but I love to work from a space of joy. And whenever I needed to take a break and I knew I could take a break, I did. I go do dishes, I would clean the countertops, I would go in the parking lot and pick up cigarettes, you know. Like I would actually give myself time, remove myself from that space of negativity to collect myself, to reboot myself, to move inward and begin to just breathe and be by myself. And so that helped a lot. It really did. Like really recognizing, okay, the environment that I'm in is toxic and I'm going to absorb it. So I need to remove myself when I get a moment. And then I did. Well, let's just say that you're in a situation that you don't have that opportunity to remove yourself. So an example would be my parents, love them. I mean, I'm very lucky that, for one, they're still on this earth, and number two, they don't live far away. But they don't have the greatest health, and the choices that they have made and continue to make don't encourage better health. But they're also adults, and I can't change that. You know, like I can voice my concerns and worry and all that kind of stuff. But those of you who are like-minded probably understand that worrying does not give you life. It depletes you. So with that, I had to be really selective on what I shared, and also, like, when I spend time with them, make sure that it's the best time. So in other words, instead of hating the fact that my mom and dad smoke, okay, that's obvious. We all know smoking a cigarette is not going to give you life. It's only taking life. Okay, so that's out there. The fact that they choose to continue to smoke, again, I can't control that. So what I can do is just give them space to understand that I still love them. They're not their cigarette. They're still my mom and dad. But also choose how much time I spend with them so that when I am with them, it's in the highest good, right? So once a week or every other week, we all get together, and it's only for like 2 hours, but man, it's awesome 2 hours. And that way, when we see each other, it's good, you know, because they're still smoking outside. Thank you. Not in my house or not in their house or so. And the other thing is that when, let's say, for example, I spend time with my mom and she's coughing because she has emphysema and COPD. So when she's coughing, that's a very big reminder of, I feel her pain. And maybe she is feeling it. And she just doesn't admit it, because then she admits that her choices are not the grandest, right? So, and she's my mom. She's not going to tell me all of that. And that's totally fine. Space is good. But what I can do is when I leave her, before I see her, and then when I leave her, I envision her in a space of good health. Literally, like, and this came to me from a yoga student, and it was the best thing ever. This was like 4 years ago when things were really, really bad for me, not for my mom. Mom's always been the same. But for me, I was having a really hard time being in her presence because I was feeling her lack of breath. And so he was like, how do you want to see your mom? And I'm like, healthy. He's like, then do that. See her in a healthy space. And so it's like, she is part of my prayer, you know? So whether you want to call it that or not, so when I see my mom struggling, I turn it around into a prayer. So my prayer is that I see her in a garden full of roses, and she's young and vibrant and breathing freely, right? So when we have these moments, so when we have these moments of struggle, of just feeling those people around us, those people who are really close to us, that's really hard. And I've had to teach Selden. So Selden's my 12-year-old who is an empath, and she's also super sensitive. She's intuitive, and we've known that since she was 5. So she sees grandma, like, and she gets so upset, like in tears, because she feels grandma's pain, even though grandma won't do anything about it. She won't even talk about it, right? So I offered that prayer to grandma, and it has made a huge difference for Selden and her time spent with her grandma. So she wants to hang out with grandma and do the things that grandma loves and what grandma has taught her, making, you know, pastries and all that kind of stuff. And that helps. So one of the other things that I've done is meditation. So meditation, there's so many, and if you don't do it or you think you can't do it, it can be an active Or by active, I mean you actively move through your day in a meditative state. So let's say, for example, you are walking and you are observing your thoughts as they come and go. Or the opposite, you're actually sitting and you're taking 5 minutes to yourself before you start your day. Or maybe you're taking an afternoon moment to yourself. And those of you who've practiced with me know that this is what I do in my own meditation, is you're allowing yourself to sit, whether walking or sitting, right? And you're allowing yourself to observe your thoughts. So your thoughts come in, and you get to choose, is this thought that comes in, is it truth or is it story? Is it mine? And is it necessary? So that way you can then ask yourself, okay, so this feeling of jealousy just came up. Is it my jealousy or is it someone else's jealousy? Is it just crazy story? Do you have all of what's needed to even be jealous in this state? Right? Is it necessary? And then what happens is that the unnecessary stuff of the moment can just drift away. So what is the unnecessary? If you're walking, you're like, I gotta go grocery shopping, I gotta rotate my laundry, I gotta write an email. Like, that's not necessary. Like, if you are in an active, like, I'm gonna meditate, whether it's an active or inactive, sitting or actively moving, even in your yoga practice, right? So that would be an active meditation. You're allowing yourself to connect to your thoughts. So the necessary, or the truth that arises, you can then be like, oh, this is mine. This state, let's say it was the jealousy. This jealousy is mine. And then you can allow yourself to feel it, feel where it's coming from, and allow yourself to process it. Because I think just by letting it go, you're not actually allowing yourself to feel. And this is the greatest thing ever, to be able to feel deeply. And I believe that empaths, so absorbing other people's stuff, right? So those of us who are moms and we have kids and animals, and then we go to school functions, and you know, like watching a soccer game for me, oh my God, it's like so stressful, because every time somebody gets plowed over, I'm like, my heart is hurting. And you know, so just allowing yourself to have this time by yourself, 5 minutes a couple times a day, to kind of like recognize where am I, what's mine, what's not, let go what's not yours, and then also what's not yours, offer prayer to like what it is. So last thing is for our young ones. So Selden, when she went to school, it was a huge transition. She's really, really quiet when she's in school. She doesn't do good in big, large groups. And we recognized this when she was 3 years old in preschool, and they had like their Christmas program. She freaked out, and buried herself in my chest because it was too big. Too much going on, too many people, too many noises. And so that's when we were like, okay, what do we do with this? Our other child is totally opposite. And so to empower her is to allow her to recognize that everyone feels. And what we can do is we can feel what other people are feeling, but we don't have to own what they're feeling. She had a teacher once who, oh boy, he just needed a huge hug. He was miserable and angry and had no time for anything but science, right? And he was like, Mom, like, he's in so much pain. And I was like, well, what should we do with that? And that's the key. Questions. Just ask your children questions. And then as a parent, remember that you can tell the teachers that your child just feels everything, but understand that the teachers aren't always going to understand. And that's okay. They don't have to. So what I would do with Selden is when a teacher would say, lash out at her because they were having a bad day. And so they were having a bad day. And I would kind of ask Selden questions as she was just like, I can't believe, the teacher said this to me and I was just and blah, blah, blah. And so they were just like feeling everything that was going on. And I'm like, well, what do you think was going on with the teacher in that moment? And then it would pull out of my child that she feels like this teacher is frustrated and tired and exhausted, and all the kids in the class weren't listening, and so they were yelling. And then all of a sudden she would understand, my daughter would understand, that it wasn't about her. And there again, let's go ahead. Maybe the teacher's not ready for a hug, because I think that's the answer to everything. Everybody needs hugs. But maybe we can offer a prayer of love to those people and just see them in a space of freedom and clarity and calm space, right? So those of you who have the kindergartners that are just starting out and they're crying a lot, ask questions, and not yes and no questions, because then you're steering them, right? Don't steer them. They have to steer themselves. So ask some questions where they can actually talk more, to come to that space of like, okay, I see where they are. Let's offer them a prayer. And then that way the prayer means that I'm letting them go. I see them in a higher space, and it's not my space to carry or burden, and it's not even a burden. So being an empath is not a burden. But I will show you something. So almost 2 years ago, my husband and I, because he's a huge empath, I showed him that video yesterday, and he was bawling. So for those of you who live in town and wonder why you don't see Danny and I around town at all these festivals and concerts and group organizations, it's because we just can't do it. Like, we can, but we are very selective because of where we are. So now what we did is we removed ourselves so that when we come home to all of this. So it's our little space of joy, nature. And not everybody can do that. I understand that. I know, Tommy. So allow yourself to find a space in your life where you can kind of decompress, reboot, re-energize, assess, journaling. Both my kids have journaled since they were 5. Even if they were doodling and drawing, and not actually writing, they have had a journal. Every Christmas I get them a new one, and it's full. Every year they go through one. And even if it's only for 5-10 minutes, they get that time to be by themselves and release and see what's going on. So hopefully this helps you guys. And if you have any questions, let me know.